How's it going, everybody? I just want to take a second to address this illegal immigration problem that we're having at the border, at the U.S. border, with the family separations and things of that nature. It's a very interesting topic. You know, the problem with even discussing this topic is the ignorant conflations of factual statements with emotionally driven prejudices manifested by tribal-like collectives. You know, if I say that I disagree with the emotional clemency that is given to illegal immigrants who break the law due to the fact that I belong to a culture that receives no clemency whatsoever, whether it's emotional or physical, then my factual statement will be met with emotional rhetoric from some collectivist group who will shun my truths and only want theirs to be the axiomatic archetypes of authenticity. Pardon me, I'm a little sick. But I have no animus or biases against immigrants of any status, illegal or compatriot. The problem for me is the conniving nature and ill intent of the government. While politicians mask their faces in compassion, their hearts and minds relish in deceit and manipulation. I speak on this topic with empiricism and not emotion. Most mainstream commentators or politicians never even experienced the separation of self from child due to illegal actions. I'm not talking about vacations. I'm not talking about a night out on the town. I'm talking about experiencing separation of self from child due to illegal actions. I have. By way of the United States government, ladies and gentlemen, I was separated from my child during my incarceration, which I totally agree that my incarceration was due to my own negligence of abiding lawfully. But ladies and gentlemen, there was no huge outcry for me, nor any of the brothers that was locked up with me about the government pulling us from our families. There was no outcry. You know, this is an abhorrent double standard. And African Americans should be outraged at how politicians are fighting tirelessly to blockade an action that separates families of immigrants due to illegal actions, but us being one of the most relied upon voting blocks for them. They allow our family breakdown and separation to be normalized. How is that? How is that? Again, please don't conflate my argument about double standards with a bias against immigrants. That is highly not true. According to a report from a 2013 U.S. Bureau of Justice Statistics, 2,220,300 Americans were incarcerated in U.S. federal and state prisons. Now, I don't know how many of those people have kids. There's no way for me to tell, but using a logical hypothesis, even if we just said a fourth of that number had kids, that's still 500,000 people forcefully separated from their kids by the U.S. government. But there's no outcry for this. There's no outcry for this. Those at the top of the hierarchical structure are connivingly constructing a tribalistic agenda, which ultimately pits groups against each other because of the concept of double standards. If the law was applied equally, a lot of tension in this country would be mitigated. A lot of it. And that's just not for African Americans and Hispanics. That's if the law was applied equally. A lot of tension in this country will be mitigated. Illegal crossing of the border is a crime. Selling drugs to feed your family due to a lack of resources is a crime. But both are components of survival. The border crossing is primarily committed by immigrants. Selling drugs is primarily committed by African Americans. The only difference that modern America is painting, the only difference is that separating my people from their family for participating in acts of survival, but that are deemed constitutionally illegal, grants us no emotional clemency, ladies and gentlemen. We receive no emotional support if we are engaging in acts of irresponsibleness and get our children taken away from us or get ourselves separated from our children. There's no emotional clemency for that. We go straight to jail and we're separated from our children. This tribalistic agenda is dangerous. It divides us at the same points in which it should connect us. It divides us at the same points in which it should connect us. The connecting commonality between all minorities is survival. The connecting commonality between all minorities is survival. Immigrants flee their countries in a survivalistic pursuit of betterment. And sometimes variables of that journey requires breaking the law. In some African American communities where resources are scarce, the decision between starvation or criminal activity leaves a very narrow option in which most times we choose criminal activity for the purposes of survival. Now, I'm not justifying crime. What I'm saying is that the laws are applied differently upon us, even if our crimes were enacted for survival purposes, than for the illegal immigrants who are illegally crossing the border for survival purposes. Are you following me? The archaic practices of politicians, ladies and gentlemen, should be highly familiarized by everyone by now. The practice of selective compassion. We should be questioning their compassion, not relishing within it, for it's selective and only shown during times of voting. Whenever a politician approaches a microphone with an utterance or display of compassion for any particular group, that's any particular group, we should all be examining their authentic intent and whether there's a manipulative motive behind it. Let's be blatantly honest. Illegal immigrants are showing a deep sense of compassion from those who discreetly want their admittance to translate into votes. Are you following me? When you look at the logistics, ladies and gentlemen, of the immigration battle, the current immigration battle, with honest intellect, you can see how this lingering for years problem has now found its way to the forefront. It's because it's election season. It's because it's election season, ladies and gentlemen. It's right around the corner. These politicians do not intrinsically nor compassionately care about illegal immigrants, in my estimation. Both parties stand to gain something from this issue.
We are a nation of immigrants, but we are also a nation of laws.
Even as we are a nation of immigrants, we're also a nation of laws. Undocumented workers broke our immigration laws, and I believe that they must be held accountable, especially those who may be dangerous. When I took office, I committed to fixing this broken immigration system, and I began by doing what I could to secure our borders. But today, our immigration system is broken, and everybody knows it. There are actions I have the legal authority to take as president. Tonight, I'm announcing those actions. We'll build on our progress at the border with additional resources for our law enforcement personnel so that they can stem the flow of illegal crossings and speed the return of those who do cross over. If you're a criminal, you'll be deported. If you plan to enter the U.S. illegally, your chances of getting caught and sent back just went up. We expect people who live in this country to play by the rules. We expect that those who cut the line will not be unfairly rewarded. The actions I'm taking are not only lawful, they're the kinds of actions taken by every single Republican president and every single Democratic president for the past half century.
That was the voice, ladies and gentlemen, of Bill Clinton and Barack Obama. In that slight skit, I was just trying to demonstrate the hypocrisy of all politicians, not just Republicans. We all know about Trump and his war against immigration, but a lot of us tend to forget that Democrats also was massively against illegal immigration, and now they're massively compassionate about immigration. So I only played that clip so that my immigrant friends could see that they're being used as a political pawn in the time of a high political climate. There's an election around the corner, ladies and gentlemen, and this issue is on the forefront, and everyone's fighting to win this issue. So they're implementing manipulation, they're implementing deception, they're implementing all aspects of malfeasance just to win the popular opinion. But time records all. Time records all. And me personally, I don't think Republicans nor Democrats are compassionate about my people nor any other immigrant. If the Democrats lose 5% of the African American vote, then their party will be in a detrimental spiral. That's why you see more Democrats fighting for illegal immigrants than Republicans. It's the reassurance of political power if citizenship is traded for votes. That's all it is. The reason I stand somewhat flustered over this is that I see no politicians exerting the same amount of time and energy or resources into my minority group. It's not jealousy, but they want mine and my brothers and sisters' vote. But we only see them during the election season. And this will be the same process that illegal immigrants would endure if amnesty is granted to them. Politicians will only shower them with compassion during the closing in months to November. And then they will be left to their own devices. The same as my community. So once again, I don't have any animus towards immigrants. It's the lawmakers. They infiltrate our intangible souls with their deception and false claims of care. Survival is an intrinsic trait of all humans. So it will be foolish of me to expect an entire group that are suffering to not be seeking haven at any cost. That's foolish. To those that say illegal immigrants shouldn't come here, they don't understand humans and our persistent exploratory journey to betterment. I'm not saying that they shouldn't come here. I'm not saying that. I'm just arguing the case that the law seems to be on their side and not on the side of those of my ethnic group who also break the law at times for survival purposes. This political system is corrupt, man. Honestly, I don't think any of us should be Democrats or Republicans. We should all be independents, beholding to no collective, mastering the art of understanding the sovereignty of the individual. See, I believe that tying yourself to a party leaves no room for compromise or the possibility of being wrong. I watch party participants on both sides willing to deny any provable axiom that is an apparent truth, but goes against their collective ideology. That's insanity. The malevolent nature of this practice destroys the concept of facts and logic. As party participants, we are now satisfied with deception. We fight with deception. We live with deception. And in some cases, we are deception. The affluent benefit of identifying with these parties has witnessed its destitution, in my estimation. People have lost track of who they really are due to the perplexed entrenchment into living as a Democrat or Republican versus self, the individual. So when I look at this immigration issue, all I see is politicians trying to acquire more votes.
OneDurr.